The story begins on a deserted island where a young woman named Jen lies unconscious on the beach wearing a life jacket. When she regains consciousness, she notices her friend Brad lying nearby, also unconscious. Jen rushes to him and upon turning him over, discovers a piece of coral embedded in his stomach. Brad is barely alive and Jen, terrified, screams for help, but there is no response. She removes her backpack and life jacket, drags Brad further away from the water, and attempts to save him by pulling the coral from his stomach and using her scarf to press against the wound. Desperate, she ventures into the nearby woods, finds a coconut, opens it with a rock, and hurriedly returns to Brad, pouring the coconut water into his mouth. However, it's too late. Brad has already died. Jen holds his face, calling out to him, but her friend is gone, leaving her devastated. The island is small, with a narrow strip of beach surrounded by dense forest. Jen, overwhelmed by grief, walks around the island, completing a full circle and returning to Brad's body. She then enters the jungle, where she discovers a clearing with a bag hanging from a tree and a red cooler. Excited, she calls out, hoping to find someone, but there is no response. Jen examines the bag's contents and finds medicine dated 1994, realizing that whoever was there before her has long since left. In the cooler, she discovers bottles of Coca-Cola, but she soon leaves them behind. Moving on, she finds a thermos and a small metal box. Inside the box, she finds a deck of cards, a pack of matches, and other small items. She also stumbles upon an abandoned tent covering a backpack that contains an old Game Boy, a car radio, a book, and a teddy bear. When Jen returns to the beach, she hears a sound coming from a hollow tree. Investigating, she finds a tropical bird inside. She gathers some leaves to cover Brad's body and looks around, seeing nothing but sand and ocean. That night, heavy rain falls, and Jen seeks shelter under some leaves, using her jacket for cover. The next morning, she catches some small fish stranded on the beach. While picking them up, she notices a dead shark split in half with deep, mysterious wounds on its body. Jen stares at the sea, wondering what could have caused such injuries. She attempts to clean the fish using a flat stone as a knife, but the task proves too difficult, and she eventually gives up. Returning to the cooler, she sits down with her belongings and opens her diary, only to find that the water has erased all the ink inside. She also finds a photo of herself and her boyfriend among her things. In the jungle, Jen discovers another clearing with a burial site for 3 people who had been there long before her. The site frightens her, and she returns to the beach, where she finds Brad's body already beginning to decay. She drags him closer to the forest, digs a shallow grave, and buries him, marking the spot with a piece of wood bearing his initial. That night, Jen improvises a sleeping place and prepares roasted fish for dinner, spending her first night alone on the deserted island. The next morning, Jen walks along the beach, searching for more resources, when she is startled to find that Brad's body has been removed from the grave, mutilated and dragged away by someone or something. Terrified, she grabs a piece of wood, sharpens it with a stone into a spear, and looks around, expecting to see something, but finds nothing. Night falls, and Jen remains on high alert, fearing that whatever took Brad's body might return to attack her. However, the night passes quietly. The following day, Jen spots something in the distance and decides to swim out to investigate. She finds a bucket and a suitcase. Diving deeper, she sees a dark hole in the ocean floor. Jen takes the bucket and suitcase back to the beach, where she finds a pair of sneakers and some clothes. That night, her third on the island, she changes into the new clothes and puts on the sneakers to stay warmer. Sitting by the fire, she opens the metal box again and discovers a secret compartment containing old photos. As she tries to examine the images by the firelight, she hears the sound of a plane overhead. Jen runs to grab a flare and fires it, but it doesn't work. She tries a second time, and the flare lights up, glowing in the distance. She waits, hoping for a response, but as the flare disappears into the horizon, she sees a humanoid monster emerging from the ocean. Terrified, Jen grabs her wooden spear and runs into the jungle, hiding until the monster leaves. The next day, Jen returns to the beach and examines the photos again. She realizes they are of a family, and the last photo shows a woman holding a bag near the tree, where Jen found the cooler earlier. In the background of the photo, Jen notices two shining dots, which she believes are the monster's eyes. Determined to escape, Jen empties the suitcase, fills it with Brad's life jackets, and tries to use it as a makeshift raft. She takes the raft to the ocean and attempts to board it, but it cannot support her weight. After several failed attempts, she throws the life jackets and suitcase back onto the beach. That night, Jen uses the hollow tree as her sleeping place, keeping her weapon close in case the monster returns. At some point during the night, Jen hears the monster approaching. It rolls the trunk with Jen inside, but she stays quiet and the creature eventually leaves. The next morning, Jen emerges from the tree and manages to catch a small shark using little fish as bait. She uses the shark as bait for the monster that night, hoping it will take the shark and leave her alone. While hiding, Jen watches as the monster takes the shark and disappears. The following morning, Jen examines the worn ropes and sharpens her weapon. She then spots something floating in the water. A mutilated body of a man, cut in half. Jen hangs the body in the same way she did with the shark, hoping to lure the monster again. On the sixth night, Jen watches from her hiding place as the monster knocks down the body and drags it into the ocean. She hears the sound of an airplane engine, but is too preoccupied with the monster's presence to act. The next morning, Jen prepares a tarp to improvise a high net in the trees, believing it will keep her safe from the creature. That night, during a thunderstorm, the monster finds her. Jen hides in the net, but the monster pulls her down. She manages to escape, running to the beach, where the monster attacks her again. Jen fights back with her spear, but the monster throws her into the water. Injured and scared, Jen retreats to the jungle and takes refuge in a tree to recover. The next morning, Jen washes her wounds and changes clothes. To her surprise, she spots an inflatable raft with a tent slowly approaching the island. Swimming out to it, she finds two other survivors from the shipwreck, her boyfriend, Lucas Griffin, and her friend Mia Reed. Overjoyed, Jen embraces Lucas, who reassures her that everything will be all right. Jen prepares breakfast for Lucas and Mia, serving them a 20-year-old soda she found in the cooler. While admiring the island's beauty, Jen warns them about the sea monster and the black hole in the ocean floor where it drags its victims. However, Lucas and Mia are skeptical, even when Jen shows them a photo of the deceased family with the monster's shining eyes in the background. Jen tries to convince them to leave the island, but Lucas and Mia refuse, believing the island is safer than the open ocean. Jen discovers traces of red liquid on a pocket knife, hinting that something terrible happened on the raft. But Lucas and Mia refuse to explain. Tensions rise as Jen insists on leaving, while Lucas and Mia prefer to stay. Eventually, Jen attempts to escape alone, but Lucas and Mia stop her, tying her to a tree to prevent her from leaving. That night, the monster attacks, killing Mia and dragging her underwater. Lucas tries to fight the creature, but is overpowered. Jen frees herself and helps Lucas escape into the jungle. The next day, Lucas is consumed by guilt and fear, while Jen remains determined to leave the island. They prepare a raft and set sail, but the monster attacks again, dragging Lucas into the ocean. Jen narrowly escapes and returns to the island, where she prepares for a final battle with the monster. Jen sets a trap, using fire and sharpened sticks to fight the creature. After a brutal battle, she kills the monster, decapitating it and using its head as proof of her ordeal. The story ends with Jen limping toward the raft, carrying the monster's head as a signal for rescue. The island is on fire, and Jen hopes her actions will help future survivors. Her journey is one of resilience, courage, and survival against unimaginable odds. The end. Subscribe to support us. Thank you for watching.